Yo. Ooh. Coffee's a little cold. This guy has been around the fashion industry for probably like around a decade. I've been following him for a while now. And I bet a lot of people actually don't know who he is or what he does. If you're watching this video, maybe you do, obviously. This is the first brand spotlight that isn't so much about a brand, more about the figure behind the brand, the artist, the designer, the creator, Jakob Hetzer. He sort of floats freely between art, fashion, and product, and he has his own label, which is fittingly named Jakob Hetzer, but is also sort of earmarked as a brand name or, I don't know, some type of naming convention, which is a conversation. Born in Detroit and, interestingly enough, raised in Germany, Hetzer sort of gained notoriety and popularity in the fashion industry in the early 2010s for his very distinct, minimal personal style. He's also worked with a few noteworthy brands as a sort of creative consultant, taking his skill at deriving a distinct aesthetic and helping brands do the same. A very clear minimalist. You can find a few different articles that sort of dive into the objects, the garments that he's wearing, and that drive his actions in his day-to-day life, which I think carry through into his brand for sure. He's become a bit of a cult-like figure, I would say, in the fashion landscape or the online landscape. I think that's mostly due to the fact that he has a very minimal digital footprint, doesn't really give in to all the gripes of modern humans, social media, digital media, except for an influence from Tumblr that he does mention in an article that I saw. On top of the products that he offers, he's put together a literary column, you could call it, going by JH Curriculum, which is sort of a place for him to upload different essays, thoughts, literary pieces, background into what goes into different collections of the brand, different pieces, and also features pieces from guest writers as well. Diving more into the product that he sells, I think, as I mentioned before, it's very clear that a lot of this is driven by the things that he wears day to day. These pieces are expensive, and there are a few that I've loved ever since I saw them and just haven't been able to pull the trigger just because it's a lot of money, really. Stretching all the way back to 2015, Hetzer has dropped 5 different collections in total, including various different types of things from shirting, outerwear, footwear, accessories, even home goods. Most of these collections include a few different pieces that all sort of have a similar feel. Obviously, that's what makes them a collection, and that can sort of be worked together in a way. But of course, all constructed with the finest fabrics and trims, which you would expect for the price of these things. Quite a few of his pieces have a very industrial as well as like a military vibe and feel in terms of the inspiration to them, which makes sense because I think Hetzer's aesthetic is driven by practicality in the pieces that he's designing, as well as aesthetic. For example, this overdyed utility deck coat, which is simply a repurposed 1960s US Navy A2 deck coat. The military influence is clear here, as he states that these garments are simply just repurposed vintage military equipment that have been repurposed and resold with Hetzer's branding on them. Another example is the overcoat labeled the Quintet over top. The military inspiration is clear in the details and the styling of this piece, such as the collar, covered front panel, and the cinched waist. Hetzer does take some creative liberty, of course, adding interesting pocketing detail to make it sort of his own feel. His dark cap installation aims at creating the perfect hat, by Hetzer standards anyways. He offers this hat in a standard hat shape as well as a bucket hat form, all sharing similar detailing, and there is a few different color and texture variations as well. On top of that, I did mention accessories. One of his most notable and well-known pieces, at least to me, is an early one. It's this silver jaw ring of sort of like a jawline of a ferocious dog, and they're of course created from 925 silver, only the finest materials, as I mentioned. But I love the feel of these pieces, and I would honestly love to own them as well. I think they look really dope. He also forayed into lots of different areas, right? Sunglasses, leather gloves, and bags at a few different points along his journey. Last comes home goods, which sort of carry that same industrial aesthetic through that Hetzer is known for. Take, for example, the corrosion on this 100% steel ashtray and ritual tray. This design sort of brings through the lived-in aesthetic that I think we see in a lot of his things, obviously inspired by military and vintage apparel, as well as his own uniform, which are garments that he's wearing every day and taking on a life of their own through his wear, as well as this super dope African rosewood incense burner, which feels honestly more like an art piece than anything. I would love to own this and have it on the shelf. I don't even know if I would burn an incense in it, I'd probably just set it on a shelf somewhere and have it as like a piece to look at. It's so sick. There are a few more things that I haven't touched on. There's a lot of things on this website that you can go more into depth to. He even wrote his own book, which is called Proof of Existence. So I don't know, very interesting thinker, designer, artist, and person in general. If you haven't heard of him, I highly suggest checking him out. Link is in the description below. That's all I got for y'all today. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like down below, as well as consider subscribing to the channel. It'd be very helpful. New brand spotlights every Wednesday, new videos every Sunday. I appreciate the time. I'll see y'all Sunday. Peace.